said they called.
How's Jared? It's too bad. It's coming. Second question.
See, we are going to have a special.
Oh, that's right. That's awesome.
I have someone volunteer.
Okay, but why is it even on there?
What do I do with my?
Well,
But do I share my screen like I do in regular Zoom?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
all
when
right.
you have it open,
Yeah.
you'll request.
Well, you
Did have a concept.
actually, even they could get on the agenda if they have two council people that want to get them on the agenda. I mean, anyone can get on the agenda. Joe Blow off the street can walk in and say, Councilman Fox, Councilman Hill, will you allow me to get on the agenda to talk about whatever? They can get on it. The councilman will represent them. That's part of the bylaws.
Well,
So
we certainly wouldn't want to stop. I think everybody would. Agenda. Well, let's
it's good to understand what they.
go ahead and get started. As far as, okay, so we do have a pledge by Councilman Fox tonight, and then we're going to have consider special reverence. This will be by Zoom. This will be from the president of the Universal Society of. They contacted us and provide a reverence. Oh, as far as a work session, Sherry, you thought there were some questions some of the council had on the cemetery that maybe you could clarify. Is that a good time to do that during this work session, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, we.
Cemetery.
Facial generation. Oh,
I did call you.
that was the,
Don't need to put my mask on.
so the
Think you should be safe.
Our budget. Okay, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Well, I've had my shots, but
Me too. 8 feet down there.
well, maybe we ought to chase him down there anyway. I don't know.
I know.
Just random. Yeah. I think so.
I'm calling Casey right now. Not,
I've done that.
not that it really matters because Sherry gave a great discussion. I have this. I'm not a. I had them take our city maps. Mapping. I don't have to go to somebody and say what map I just.
Well, and we did kind of reach out and had another presentation on this. Teresa and I sat in on it, and in fact, by the time we were done, they just flat out told us they really couldn't do everything that. Any other, have any questions or anything on the minutes? Started with our meeting. Discuss or anything like that. Is this staying on all the time? Did you have any questions on the minutes? He's not gonna do that.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, so can you hear me now? In stereo. So
Better.
so did you have any questions on the minutes or last meeting?
This looks fine.
So then, the other things that we need to discuss. Okay. I don't know how to, I got really good words that would describe how that went. As you know, in the past, they've always based our contracted amount of money. 50% is on our population and 50% is on our calls. And what happens with a place like Hooper, where we have like third largest city, as far as contracted cities are concerned, population wise, we're pretty good size. When it comes to the calls, we're not near, oftentimes not even a third as other areas where they're having calls. So what happens if there's a place where they have a lot of calls, but less population? I don't know how to demonstrate it other than calls are way up here, but you're only paying here based on your population. Off. So if you just think that across the board until you get to Hooper, you have a population up here and our calls are down here. So if they're going to level the playing field for everyone, and if there's other cities who are, you know, they have less population, but a lot more calls, it's like they take part of our money, support them. They just keep doing that until it kind of levels out. And so it's obvious what's happening. And, you know, in a really good way, it's good that Hooper's really be considered a safe place to live. And we have reasons for the sheriff's deputies to come out here. But in part of all of this discussion, we finally resolved that but to make it the very best, so it would be pretty good across the board. I mean, when they asked, Hooper's mayor what he thought, I said, I think 100% ought to be calls. We just pay for the service that we get. As it shouldn't have anything to do with population. But that really throws a wrench in as far as how much money some cities would have to. But in all of our discussion, it finally was narrowed down to, well, how about a 70-30? If you keep in mind that 100% of deputies that are hired comes from the contract money, the contract city money. Our money doesn't go to take care of the Weber County Jail. It doesn't take care of the, what's it called? The CSI, the high criminal scene investigations and that. It just goes to hire new deputies. So our contract money hires new deputies, and some cities say, well, we need more deputies. That just keeps putting us deeper in the hole, because now we're paying for service go to another city. After we were all done with our first round of discussion, everybody kind of agreed that it went like there's 8 cities involved, and they leave it up to the cities to vote. And it came down to 4 against. So they let the unincorporated part of Weber County take a vote. They voted, okay, we'll go 70-30. No sooner did he do that, and someone jumped up. And well, we started out at 50-50, and now we're at 70-30. How about a 60-40? And then that was another hour's discussion about that. And, I think Hooper will be okay. I think we'll be fine, but the condition on us going with 60-40, I mean, instead of going from 500,000 a year up to 700,000 a year, is if they do not hire more deputies. Keep it at that ratio of 60-40, and they do not hire more deputies, we'll stay the same where we've been. If they start messing with those numbers, ours, Hooper by far, even to the point of paying double service call than other cities. And they try to attribute that to a lot of different. Our total amount will go down. There's no question. And it's a big difference. I mean, you just take that 60-40 compared to 50, and it's really a big difference on what we. Once a year. Right. Well, yeah, so we had, there's 4 other cities, 3 other cities besides ourselves that have been concerned about it. Again, I'll just say Hooper by far is getting the short end of the deal on this. Pay double what other cities who have less people, a lot more calls. Yeah, well, we could call them out, but I don't know if. Just saying. But, and if we were to talk about the whole discussion, I mean, sometimes they say, well, part of the reason Hooper is so, you have so few calls out there is because you don't have business. You send all your, I'm kind of plugging in some words, all the people that go to shop at a Walmart, other places like that, where there's a lot more crimes committed. So we don't have crime here because we're going somewhere else to commit the crime. There's no question, they generate more revenue when it comes to property taxes. Sales tax, we still get our share across the state, and that's good. But where Hooper City does not have a property tax, have a business move in and a higher property tax. which should offset increased crime, right? I mean, that's logically say, well, if you've got all these businesses, then just raise the property tax, help cover the crime that's being committed. But I don't know if I explained that to where it makes a lot of sense. To look at the charts that they gave us, it doesn't make, when you look at it, it just doesn't even make sense, the graphs. Been that way for a long time. Even Mayor Green, they tried to put GPS in all the police cars so that they could actually track how much time they were in any city. And that really showed that they spent very little time in Hooper. And of course, they used the example that, well, have a DUI in Hooper, it takes 15 to get them in the cruiser, and it takes 3 hours to book them over on 12th Street. So all the time spent on 12th Street. That was one part of our discussion too. So I think there's no question we made some headway. I don't look to see the amount of money go up at all this year. Our protection. You know, to all of those who, I think it's just, I think it's a real compliment to say have very few calls. Sheriff's Department to come here to Hooper. The best thing we can do to fail that is just be good neighbors. Get to know your neighbors well enough that if something just doesn't quite look right, recognize
At some point, maybe forward a little bit and getting our own small police department. But I mean, what, $500,000 goes to the sheriff, right? Isn't that what it is? Roughly, I mean.
yeah, it's
Roughly around 500,000. I mean, you don't have to be too forward thinking. How many years would it take, you know, to put in a small, I don't know. I would like to look at that because every year we spend $500,000 on the sheriff.
yeah, I think it's pretty expensive
Is
by the
it-
time you liability costs and
So North Ogden has about 23 officers, though. They spent about 2.1 million. Their budgets went up. They do have a police chief. They do have the full gamut. The one thing when I was working with law enforcement and going to those meetings in my previous assignment, when Sheriff Arbonne come on, what I think he did a really good job of, and it doesn't mean we're paying our fair share, but the value of what I guess you get by using a department like the Sheriff's Department, what he talked to us about, and this may or may not, you know, ring true with you or not, but he said, you know, you get more than the 2 or 3 officers that we have in town. If there is a large crime, we have a CSI investigation team that comes along with that. We have a drug enforcement and the narcotics agency that comes along with that, specialist. So to get all the specialties that the Sheriff's Department has access to in your own little city police department could be quite costly. Could we get by? And I don't disagree. I mean, that was one thing.
I mean, we don't need 23 officers. I'm thinking 1 or 2. I mean, how many would we have to have for how many?
And when
heads up.
Sheriff Arbonne ran through, I was like, okay, I don't like what we're being taxed versus other cities by any means, because I agree with the mayor 100%. Like, we're not paying our fair share when it comes to call volume by any means. But the resources, and if you ever are interested, he's got a really good like rollout of what those resources are and our availability as a city. And maybe we ought to have them come back in and do a presentation to us as a council and tell us about all the services that we have available. Deputy, he's the second in charge. Forgot his name, but he lives in Oakland. So,
Brandon,
Christopher.
Yes. Nope. But yeah, there's another gentleman, and I can't think of it right now. Anyway. Yeah, but it'd be interesting maybe for everyone to see that. I like the presentation. It's very informative. Because before I was like, well, why don't we just hire 3 or 4 officers and
You mentioned North Ogden. No, Ruby, I think kind of looking at this, so had you mentioned they thought it was real efficient? They looking to maybe start,
yeah, they're. So I don't know about the new mayor, Mayor Taylor.
oh,
Become expensive real fast, right?
well, they kind of brought up, talked a little bit about like the Marriott Slaterville area, you know, they're going to put Amazon distribution center out there, and I guess it's just huge, and wondered why, like Ogden City didn't pick up. But one of the reasons is that they'll have 800 vans that will leave, 800 vans will leave and come back every day. And so, but I hope they, Marriott Slaterville, a ton of money with, because this will help. We'll start, they'll help us level out a little better. All right, we'll see in close to 7 o'clock. Call this meeting to order, Cooper City Council for May the 6th, 2021. And as we mentioned, have a pledge allegiance first, and then we'll have a reverence that will be provided by John Zed, who is the president of the Universal Society of Hinduism. And I see, Rajan, you're on. I can see you on the screen, so it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
So-
Can you hear me?
And we can hear you.
Okay.
So, Councilmember Cox, we'll have you lead us in a pledge allegiance, and then we'll have all that with. Public.
Hello.
Okay, you're good. You're good to go.
My hearty thanks to Mayor Dale Fowers for scheduling me to read invocation for the great city of Hooper. I shall be reading from ancient Hindu scriptures in Sanskrit, some as old as about 1500 BCE, and then interpret in English. May all rise, please. Thank you. Om Bhurvah Svah Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who is inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky and inside the soul of the heaven. May he stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamya Tamsoma Jyotirgamya Mrityor Mamratam Gamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Sakta Statam Karyam Karma Samachara. Sakto Hyacharan Karma Parama Panoti Purusha Karma Nevahi Samsiddhi Mastita Jankadya Loka Sangreha Mevapi Sampa Shankar Tumra Hasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world by devotion to selfless. One attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavtu Saha Nobunaktu Saha Viryan Karba Bahai Tejasvina Vadita Mastu Ma Vidvisa Bahai. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening. May no obstacle arise between us. Samniva Kuti Samna Hirdaniva Samnamastu O Mano Yathavasu Sahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts. May your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Before we begin, we may want to, well, we'd like to just introduce Heather Nielsen, who's been hired here at the city. Heather, maybe we'll just have you stand if that's all right, so everybody can see. She was hired to play Shauna. So I think you'll have a chance to get to meet everyone as time goes on. So. Okay, before we start working down through the agenda, we'll just ask, are there any conflicts of interest that need to be disclosed by any members of the council at this time? None? All right, approval of the minutes from April 15th, 2021. Had a chance to read and go through those. Any corrections or amendments that need to be made, or not, we'll just have a motion to close.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 15th, 2021 meeting as written and reviewed.
Okay, we have a motion from Council Member Hill and a second from Council Member Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, at this time on the agenda, have the citizens' comments that would relate to agenda items only. If any of you would like to make a comment at this time, you're welcome to. I was going to say come up to the microphone, but I don't see. Welcome to come up to the microphone, and we'll, if you would just tell us your name and your address. And then we would like to limit these to 3 minutes.
I'll go ahead and get it over quick. Bryce Wilcox, 4152 South, 5350 West, Hooper. I am a member of the Planning Commission. And let me make this clear. I am not against Ryan Fisher. He is on the agenda tonight. And of course, we recommended that we do not rezone that, for multiple reasons, as you guys probably are aware of, and there's no reason hashing that out. And it's more of a principle right now. It's not, who the person is, it's a principle. If we go ahead and open the floodgate, there's already people lining up. The word on the street is, and if I heard it once, it would be okay, but I've heard it 3 and 4 times. Yeah, go to the Planning Commission, they'll deny it, then take it to the city council and we'll get it approved. So that's the word on the street. And I would really like to see us work together as a team but the wheels aren't greased right now. You know, and Chris, you like to come to our meetings and give us advice and tell us that we're putting the city in jeopardy. I'll tell you what, if you approve this one, the next one you approve, and then say you don't approve somebody, that's where you're going to have the jeopardy and put the city in a compromising situation. It's not a big time. I'm sure we're going to be done, you know, within, I don't know, 10 months. I don't know, but patience does prevail. So, and there again, I think Ryan Fisher is a great guy, and it's nothing against him. It's just a principle of the matter is what I would like to see. And I think the citizens would too as well. It looks like a war zone out by my neighborhood. It really does. And so it's a little concerning that, you know, infrastructure and those things really need to be taken a look at, and not just look at the bottom line almighty dollar and put someone else's concerns and needs before the city. So anyway, that's what I'd like to say. Thanks for your time.
Mary Simpson, 4311 South, 5900 West in Hooper. And I'm speaking to you tonight as a concerned citizen of Hooper. I'm concerned because the two groups of people that were either appointed or elected to represent the citizens of Hooper don't seem to be working together. They seem to be at odds with each other, and this will not result in anything good for our community at large. The City Council approved a resolution that was originated in the Planning Commission. This resolution was put in place to help control the exploding requests for rezones that has happened in the previous 12 to 18 months. There were many acres of land throughout the city that had been rezoned to higher density, and then the developers just stopped progress, or they found that after rushing to get the rezone, that there were so many other obstacles that they gave up and sold the land to another developer. I'm not here to tell you the details of the obstacles like lifting sewage, widening roads, sufficient water supply, or drainage without flooding adjacent properties. What I am here for is to ask that the council be supportive of the Planning Commission and the resolution. The commission hears the public comments regarding new developments, and the overwhelming response is to keep Hooper to 1 acre lots. The request before you tonight as item number 2 on the agenda was declined by the Planning Commission because the commission wanted to comply with the spirit of the resolution, which is to hold off any new rezone requests until the new general plan for our city with new maps for future land use can be completed. I'm asking tonight that the City Council strongly consider supporting the Planning Commission in their decision. If not, then I ask you, what good is a Planning Commission for our city if the council doesn't take their decision seriously and support it? Thank you.
Okay,
Natalie Suick, 56 South West. I want to echo everything that said. Brought up a good point I hadn't thought about my class, and where number 2 on the agenda was not recommended. I would love to the council and the committee both work together. It seems like getting more and more people here. I'm hoping that social media is now working, trying to get people here. Both don't want this. Like everybody but the council is consistently voting against what the people want. I don't know if you're listening to us or not, but it feels like you're not listening to us at all. So I would ask that you please take into consideration what the commission, our commission, recommending vote on this. Thanks.
Scott and South Hooper. I second. But been to all the meetings. Hold it. Hold. Heard me up here before. That's Hooper's a great place to live and out here, and like I say, I second.
Okay, are there any other citizens' comments?
Amanda Prince, 6093 West, 5300 South. First off, I want to express my gratitude to the members of the City Council. I know it is not easy to be sitting in your seats. I know you take a lot of heat publicly here on social media, and it's easy to get up and criticize when you don't have to be behind there. And I hope you know that there are people that do appreciate everything that you do. And I believe that for the most part, most of you really do try and make the best decisions for Hooper. I think it's important. A lot of people have talked about the resolution, and just one of the statements in there, if you don't mind, I'll read it. Whereas the current general plan policy provides for an annual review of the general plan by the Planning and Zoning Commission and a comprehensive review every 5 years during a static point in time to ensure that the goals and policies of the plan are realistic, attainable, and consistent with the wishes of the community. Right now, we're in the process of trying to find out what those wishes are. We've sent out 2 surveys. I think it's important to note that in survey number 1, 79.86% of the community agreed or strongly agreed that Hooper should encourage single-family homes on larger lots. Larger lots is subjective. We wonder, what does that mean? So in the second survey that came out, that question was asked, and the majority, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, it was just barely sent out yesterday, I believe, from Wasatch Front Regional Council. But if you look at that, the majority of people are in favor of 1 acre lots. And I realize that just because the majority is, that doesn't mean everybody. But I think it's important that if we're trying to take into consideration the things that the community wants, those things need to be considered. The other thing that I think is worth noting is that we are in the process of trying to not only look at the capacity of our infrastructure, but the sustainability of it. There are certain fees, there's maintenance on the sewer, there's things that need to be taken care of. Who's going to pay for that? The more where we put on that, more things are going to need to be maintained and fixed, and that requires money, and that cost has to be absorbed somewhere. The impact fees that we charge to these developers are not, they're not covering maintenance. I just think it's really important that we try to be united and that we try to have communication between the Planning Commission and the City Council, and that we really try to listen to what the citizens are saying, the feedback that we're getting in this survey. I think it's important. Thank you.
Sheldon Greener, 5638 South, 6800 West. Everybody's already said anything that I would have to say on the Ryan Fisher. You guys know my feelings on that. But I was just wondering about number 6 on here. I've never seen something like this on a city council meeting before. So I was just wondering, is that a standard practice that would be happening at the council meeting at this stage? But like some feedback on that.
Okay, that is a result of, if there's 2 council members that would like something placed on the agenda, have to. So that's where that came from.
So that's going outside of a standard procedure.
Well, it's standard as far as what normally happens, but it is procedure that if council members that would like something placed on the agenda and they both agree, then we place it on the agenda.
But outside of what would normally happen under these situations.
Chris, do you want to explain?
So there's a soccer group that approaches, not actually on the agenda. That's cool. But there's a soccer group that approached that actually wants to present a soccer complex opportunity in the town.
Yeah, I'm aware of the,
And Brad and Lewis are in talks with them with some property they have. They approached the city. I think they did a temporary meeting.
We had a concept meeting. Right.
And then they asked me if the council would be interested in seeing what that development might look like with the soccer fields. We recently went over our ordinances in the past. This is the Hooper City Council, right? And so as council members, we have the right to be able to get on the agenda if there's two of us concurring, whatever we deem would be reasonable to talk about. We'll allow anyone that approaches us, and that's been my argument over and over again. If there's someone in the community that wants to come address the city council and they have a reason to do so, and two council people sign off on that, I would entertain you all day long because I would love to hear what you have to say. Most of the time, right, y'all get a moment in this moment to talk to us, and it's a pretty short moment. We'll probably talk 3 minutes now. I think that there's presentation that benefits the city as a whole, or could, or that affects the city as a whole, then I would encourage everyone that can hear this, reach out to the city council, ask to be on the agenda, come talk to us.
all right, fair enough, thanks.
And just because something's on the agenda doesn't mean that it's gonna be approved.
Yeah, there'd be no.
Up to the planning commission and see what they have to say. Looks like it might benefit our town. Or, shit, you guys are crazy. No, not a chance.
Ari Justinson, 69 Evan West, 900 South. Also known as Sophie Well. Any of you who might from Hooper recognize. I know that I've talked, and this is the same thing. I go over it because I don't really understand all the zoning and all those. I do understand. And I don't know if it's something that's kept undercover. We don't talk about. Where is the water coming from by this? Now, my well that 5 years ago ran 5 gallons in 33 seconds is now a trickle. So what has happened that I think that we are supplying too many homes and we don't have enough water. I know that we also own irrigation shares. And I know that has really nothing to do with this, but then again, it has everything to do with it. This is our ground. It needs to be taken care of. The houses that are coming in, there's more and more homes. So 21 years ago, when we built our home, they said, no more, because there's not enough water. Where did we find enough water for all these homes? I would like some kind of a written report. And I know, when I talk to people, they say, you got to go talk to Hooper Water. And I said, no, I don't. Hooper Water is not the ones in council that is doing the zoning, and Hooper, city. It's them that are allowing the homes. But when you allow these building permits, are you also saying, okay, how much water you're going to use per year? Where can you tell me, anyone tell me, where is the water coming from that wasn't here 21 years ago and that I can say as a fact, no longer in that aquifer? Anybody?
I see you or me, or
But you guys, yes, I'm sorry.
and they can't break ground to start the development through the city until that will serve letter comes from both the irrigation company and the water company. So our ordinances won't allow that. We don't approve any building until those things come back through our planning commission, right? The planning commission vets that out and it comes to us. The council doesn't approve any of that until that.
Okay, well, it's still a question that should be on everyone's mind.
I-
Okay,
I-
whether
I-
Hooper City, where do they buy the water? And how can they prove?
They have meetings, you should go. Yeah, we're a pretty unique community in the sense that we have no control over some of, you know, our providers. We don't control water, we don't control irrigation. It's done by a separate corporation. So I get concerned though, for sure.
My name's Sandra Jones. I live on 5500 South, 6538 West. I'm just kind of seconding what she's saying because me and my husband, we own a water share and our ditch is full. Like, and we don't even live in like the brand new subdivisions where all these houses are going up, which maybe I'm kind of like, you need to put that on the next agenda to talk about. I feel like that's more of a Hooper problem than a water problem with like the houses that are on my road. Does that make sense? But yeah, we have a share that we can't use. Yeah, our ditches. And kind of like they told us in the beginning that we could get on a list, but my house for like 5 years now. And
Okay, so your concern is your water's in the ditch, but you can't get it out of the ditch to flood irrigate with?
oh no, like we just have a share and we try to hook up to our share. And the people that lived in our house before, they could, but we can't. They're like, your ditch is full. There's too many people watering on your ditch.
You have secondary water?
We don't have secondary. That's sucks. So you can see why I'm frustrated about it. But okay, same thing.
Councilman Cox is.
I'm texting someone about that right at this moment.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you.
I will explain a little on that. When a ditch is full, all the ditches are full of water. So the way the only way they can control that is with time. In order to let someone use water, they've got to take some time away from someone else and give that time to, anyway, so, but no, I don't think that's the case. I think they like you.
You should be assigned a time.
Yeah.
Okay. You pay your water share bill once a year, don't you? You pay for that share, then you should absolutely have a water time. So.
Okay, are there any other citizens' comments?
I wanted to point out, I know when this resolution was passed, I've gone back and I've looked at the minutes and everything, there was some concern, and I think it's been a little bit miscommunicated that this resolution means there's a halt to all rezones, and that's not the case. It says that we would carefully consider them. But if you go back and you listen to the meetings, several of the council mentioned, if it's like a 2-acre lot or something like that, but those are things that we would consider. But once you get into these larger lots, I think that's more of a pull on our resources and on the things that we're trying to figure out right now. So I'm hoping that you guys will uphold the spirit of what that resolution was supposed to accomplish, and that you will help us pause so that we can make good decisions during this time. Sorry, thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay, C. Oh, okay, yes, okay.
All right, this is from Deborah, slaughter her name. Perfect, Maragoni. Dear Mayor and council members, we've noticed once again numerous requests for rezoning in our community. This has us very concerned. Not only has our traffic increased exponentially, but with the droughts plaguing Utah, we were fearful of decreased water services. Our small community cannot handle the constant influx of new houses and population increase. There is a limit on what we can handle. As far as we are aware, in order to provide services and safety, our roads and utilities are in need of immediate upgrades. Our road 5100 West is barely able to handle the traffic that we now have. The interchange at 5100 West and 5500 South will be in need of a stoplight soon. There is increased crime, crowded roads, and school. Is this really the community we desire? We can't understand why increasing lot sizes would be detrimental for our citizens. The only ones fighting that are those who will benefit financially, the subdividers. We deserve better than to turn into another West Haven, Clinton, or Syracuse. The impact to current residents must be considered. Yes, growth is certain, but keep it a country filled with larger lots. If any individual is unable to handle a country-sized lot, we have no idea why they would choose to live in Hooper. Thank you. Okay, this one's from Lori McLaughlin, right? Okay, city council members, just in case we're not able to attend the meeting tonight, I wanted to make sure my voice is heard as a member of this community. My husband and I purchased a home here last August in Hooper on 1 acre. We moved out of the city in Holiday, which was at one time nice and quiet. Over the years in Holiday, because of the redevelopment and rezoning, it has become a daybreak type of city. More traffic, higher taxes, lack of resources for the infrastructure needed to support the growth, gangs, increase in crime and homeless camps, and increased pollution. All of those were taken into consideration when we chose Hooper to purchase our retirement home and live quietly in the country. We're surrounded by farmland, cows, horses, goats, turkey, mules, and chickens. We absolutely love it here, exactly the way it is. My husband retired from the South Salt Lake Police Department with over 20 years of service, and our homestead is our sanctuary away from the city. We want to keep it that way. We are opposed to any rezoning that increases the population here. I don't want to see Hooper turn into a city living, as that's exactly why we moved, to get away from it all. I love the smell of the alfalfa fields when cut. I love hearing all of the livestock, even in the middle of the night. I love the lack of traffic lights and traffic. I love the quietness and peace Hooper brings into our daily lives. I love seeing posts in Facebook groups about someone's goat, horse, or pig that got out instead of the daily crime posts we saw when living in Holiday. Please take all these things into consideration while voting on any future rezoning. Thank you for your time and supporting the views of the people you represent and voted you into office.
Thank you. By the way, Heather, you did a really good job. Okay, next, there's no other citizens' comments. We'll go on with the agenda. Request for an R2, and Tracy will just give us patient on that.
I share my screen here and well, I don't think there's any mystery as to what this first item is after the comments that we've heard, and I can hardly wait till see what my Darth Vader voice shows up on that text over there. So if I I say something that's may not be what I'm actually saying over on that. So this is a rezone request for Ryan Fisher. It's a property at about 5,000 south off of just west of 6,300 west. I've highlighted the area there in red. It's 8.39 acres. Mr. Fisher has requested R1 to R2 in a zoning change. So here in the area right there, mostly rectangular area with a home up near the front of the property. So 6,300 west, about 5,000 south. Okay, so this is our current generalized future land use map. And I've highlighted there with a little arrow right where this property fits. It's right on the outer edge of the area that was designated for medium density residential. And so as such, it qualifies for a request. And we'll zoom in here in just a minute, look at it a little closer. Zoning, again, right, I pointed to that property here. You can see how where it is relative to the other things in the area. Just zoom in again. On the left then would be the zoomed in version of the land use map. Again, out on the fringe, the area in that orangey brown color is the medium density, and then yellow is low density in our land use, and then those striped green are just agricultural protection overlay areas that have been requested over the years. On the right then is the zoning map, current zoning. All the light yellow is currently zoned R1, and the tan are the areas that have been or that are zoned R2 at this point in time. I was not able to be at the Planning Commission. I was out of state that night, but so I don't know all the comments that were made at that meeting, but the Planning Commission, as you've heard, did recommend denial of this rezone request at meeting, recommended to the council. So yeah, any questions for me? That's really all I have on this tonight, so.
Rightfully concerned about infrastructure because that's important for our future. This is a question I've asked multiple times in the last couple of years. It comes up, we have a problem with streets, we have a problem with our sewer, we have a problem with all these things. I feel like somewhere there's someone shaking a stick, creating fear in our citizens' minds that we're doing something that's not appropriate. And yet when I've asked you, who is our expert, right, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Do you see an infrastructure problem with how the sewer currently sits and the street system with this parcel of property if they were to put 10 homes in that area? Is there a street problem? Is there a home problem?
You know, I don't know that I can speak specifically to streets right now. We're in the process of looking at all the streets in a transportation master plan. I'm fairly confident that you know, we're going to look at a 25-year period. I'm real confident that right now there isn't a single street in Hooper that wouldn't be classified as a level A service, A being the best and F being the worst. It just isn't there. Now we'll see what the projections are after we apply some of this over time. I can't really speak to that. I can speak to the sewer. We do not have a capacity issue in our vacuum sewer system. It is just not there. We planned for in each of these 3 vacuum zones for over 1,200 connections. Right now there are 500 in each or so. Yeah, you know, outside of the vacuum area, there are other areas where we've also planned for not vacuum, but for regional sewer lift stations to handle 500 homes each. We have a developer building one right now up on the Rawson property. We have another developer that's planning to build one down on Beth Christensen's property to handle that whole area. We have another one that's talking to us about one that's on the property south of Sinclair. Yeah, I mean, do I really want all that to happen? No. But we are in the process of making sure that the sewer capacity is there by forcing these things to be built. But the vacuum sewer was planned for a lot more lots than we have right now.
Haven't we discussed though that it's about time for a redo on this?
We're time to upgrade our pump, to replace our pumps in some of the stations. But that's a $15,000 thing as opposed to the multi-million-dollar project that we used to put the sewer in. Yeah.
Sure right now. It's again, for everyone out here, I've heard the same thing. Our sewer's in bad shape. We don't have the money to fix our sewer. We don't have the money to maintain our sewer. I just sat through a budget meeting a week ago, I think, and asked that question. We have money for our sewer. We have money to maintain our sewer. Our impact fees are covering the sewer. We're not going broke with our sewer. So I just want to reaffirm to the citizens that when it comes to the sewer, if you have a problem with the sewer, I'm not saying there's not hiccups, but as far as the overall function, I can't find anything that's saying the sewer's bad.
So impact fees cannot be used for maintenance. Okay, impact fees are used for new development to buy capacity in the existing system. And so we have an existing system that has capacity. They have to buy that with the impact fee. We use that money mostly to pay the debt service that we've been paying for 10 years. And by the way, we got a 0 interest loan, from the state of Utah when we put this in, but we still have to pay that back over 30 years. Maintenance has to come out of user fees. And I don't follow the budget. I do pay. I live on the next street over. If that's not sufficient, then you need to do a rate study and determine if they need to be raised. But that has to come out of the individual user fees.
Homes aren't affecting the decline in the system. They're paying for it through.
They're helping to pay the debt service.
But I don't think capacity is the only issue. I think obviously maintenance is increasing. And obviously we're going to have some expensive upgrades. So I think when you say we have the capacity, that is not the only issue. There are other issues related to the sewer.
Well, I've said many times, and I don't know that how often I've said in this open meeting, but we've talked to Public Works. There has to be some method of collecting money that is set aside for replacement. That's just a fact of life. Your car doesn't run forever. Your furnace doesn't run forever. And the only place that can come from is off of people's backs, honestly, so, and I don't know whether that's happening or not. So.
Yeah, I think, appreciate that, Tracy and Councilman Paulson, but again, we want to make sure we know it. We always know it has the capacity. I don't think that's ever been questioned. So we just need to make sure it's sustainable, that it can go through time. Unfortunately, where we live, anytime you're running pumps, we don't have a gravity feed system. So
No, that would have been impossible here.
that would have been impossible. Right. Okay, so do we have someone here to represent this application for a rezone, Ryan Fisher?
Oh.
You want me to start then?
Sure, you just kind of explain what your
All right.
plans are, and then we'll probably
Okay.
have some questions
So
for
I'm
you.
the villain in the room tonight. as I said, I mentioned this in the planning commission meeting, but I've lived here almost 30 years. My wife was born and raised here. Her family is original. I mean, they've been here, I don't know how long, but over 100 years. So in fact, the person that we bought this land from was my wife's bus driver all through elementary school. So we purchased this land as an opportunity to build a house on a different piece of land, and then wanted to see if we could rezone it along the way. That was the purpose of this. This isn't something where we're going to come in, throw up homes and get out of town. Okay, we want to we've raised our family here. We want to continue to be here. We love Hooper as much as the passionate people that you've heard from tonight. I think maybe we just have a little different view of how that's going to progress, I think. But the reason I'm here tonight is I kind of feel like at the planning commission, the decision had already been made before I ever said a word, and that may be not correct, but that's kind of how I felt. And I know that I have the opportunity to bring it before the city council and present it. So I think one of the things that I want to mention is that, and by the way, I should say too, that I understand the comments that have been said here tonight. I've lived here a long time, and I think nobody likes to see their field put into homes. I've seen it happen. I've lived a couple of places in Hooper. I've lived on a half acre. I've lived on an acre. I understand, I think, kind of the passion that people here in Hooper have. Also, though, I think as Tracy Allen showed us on this medium density zoning, that I'm not requesting something that hasn't been planned for many years. Okay, this was approved in 2014. It's supposed to be, at some point we knew that half acres would be there. That's why it was zoned that way. And I think if you look at the past planning of mayors and city council and planning commission members for many years, they knew that the day that we're seeing today with this kind of exponential growth would come. And there's a reason that they took part of Hooper that doesn't have infrastructure to support medium density or high density, and they've protected that. And that's what West Hooper is. And if you go and look at that, unless something changes, that will never be high density or medium density. We have that protection there. And I think we have to consider that the people that have been planning Hooper City, not just you good people and the planning commission, but the people that have been doing this for many years, the 30 years that I've lived here, that they've had the best interests of Hooper in mind, and that they've planned those things. Okay, and I think it's a little bit of a slap in the face to them if we all of a sudden come along and say we're going to try to reverse and go backwards with what we've been planning for many years. And so another point I want to make is that literally 18 months ago, I don't know if it was, I don't know all the details of how it was approved, but the property that is literally to the south of me that I share a property line with was approved for the half acre lots just 18 months ago. And so I don't think it's an unreasonable request. If that person ever wanted to develop, it would not make any sense to me to share a property line with someone who was approved for a half acre and that this would not be approved. I had a concept meeting with the mayor, with the engineer, with department heads from sewer and secondary and so forth. And I asked specifically the question if the infrastructure was there, and I was assured that there were no issues with power or water or sewer or anything else, that it was all designed for that medium density many years ago. So again, that's kind of the point that I'm coming from. I think that when you're looking at this, in the resolution, it doesn't state no rezones can happen. It says limited. But from what I'm seeing, it's limited means one lot and that's it. And to me, also, it says that the master plan would be done in a timely manner. And I was told in my concept meeting that could be as late summer of 2022, which would end up being almost 2 years that this master plan has been open. And to me, I don't know how anyone could argue that that's a reasonable time frame or considered a timely manner. So again, that's why I'm here. I don't want to wait another year and a half to go through that process at that point. So one more thing I should mention is that I was required to purchase the water shares, and I have more than adequate water shares for the rezone for the property, and there shouldn't be any issues with that, as well as the other infrastructure. So that's kind of my point. And my request is that rather than just blanket veto a rezone, that we consider what it is, where it is, why the request is being made, and actually consider if it makes sense, a rezone.
Council have any questions? for Ryan? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll bring this back to the council now and discussion. Stone.
I can just take a second. Definitely, no, I'm not. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little misunderstood on where I stand with development. It took several hours to try to put together my thoughts for this discussion today, so that I come off maybe a little more articulate, less emotional. And so I went back and I listened to as Amanda, Prince, I listened to past tapes. I tried to get a perspective of where we as a council were at, both through the planning commission meetings that were held back in last September, October, November. I listened to the discussion that went on during those meetings. Text messages that I had from different individuals, and I tried to formulate articulate thought on where we're at today. I was able to attend the planning commission meeting. Our commissioners are in a sticky situation. They got a lot on their plate. I agree with a lot of stuff. Sometimes I don't agree, and I think that's what makes our country and our community great, is that we can disagree and still move forward. The resolution that we talked about has come up multiple times. We passed the resolution. The mayor signed it on October 15th, I think.
Over 15.
October 15th.
2020.
2020. Mr. Fisher stated, talks about May limit in time. Went back and read an email that Commissioner Prince had sent out in regards to gathering information from both the commissioners and from the council members. After this resolution, and in the email, it specifically asked for the best interest in the community, of the public's health, safety, and welfare while we conduct this comprehensive review. Health, safety, and welfare.
Excuse me. I just got a text that says you need to speak in the microphone. And it was somebody not.
Sorry. I'll get close. It didn't even sound like it worked. Can you hear me now? I went back and read some state code as well that came up in discussion with this as we were passing this resolution. And there's two different code subsections that we had reviewed and discussed while we were looking at this resolution, and trying to maintain our concurrence and concordance with the state law as well as our own ordinances. If those of you that want to look it up, it's in section 504, chapter 9A, section 504. And in this area of code, it talks about temporary land use regulations. And I don't want to read the whole thing, but it talks about the legislative body can make a finding of compelling countervailance of public interest. And due to that, we as a elected body can say, there's an issue, we need to stop whatever, right? So, dang, we don't have water, which is not our control, but let's say that, you know, Hooper Water came to us, said we can't serve the water anymore, then that's a compelling interest. We got to slow some things down. We got to stop some things. This ordinance goes on to, or this code goes on to say that we have the ability to, for 6 months, put into an effect a stoppage of all development for 6 months. We didn't do that because we knew that this process would be longer than 6 months. So we didn't put in a stoppage of growth. We said, we want to slow growth. We want to limit it. We want to do it wisely. So then we referred over to, in that same Title 10, 509 A. Title 10, Chapter 9A, 509, Section 509. We actually, I believe, going back and listening to things, kind of went with this method. And in this method, it says basically, once again, if there's eminent problems with infrastructure, we want to be able to slow things down so we can take a look at it. In this same code, the timeline given us as an elected body is 180 days to do that. Right now, we're at 7 months, which if my calculations are close, it's 210 days. So I brought up in the planning commission meeting that we can't blanket not approve places because we're trying to stop growth. And I was told, no, we've approved stuff. So I went back through the last 8 months of agendas, and I have them here for anyone that'd like to review them. Of all the agenda items that came before the city council in the last, since we've been talking about this process. We have approved 2 zoning changes, both of which were presented in the September Planning Commission meeting. That was stated at that September Planning Commission meeting that they would not be held accountable to the new ordinances being put in place. Those are the only 2 that we as a body have seen or approved, based on the word given by our Planning Commission at that meeting. So the Planning Commission told me last time that we approved others. I don't see them, and I haven't approved them. So that tells me that for 7 months, we've stopped growth in this town. It's great. But we can't stop it indefinitely, folks. It's not in compliance with state code. It's against the law. So the concern is this. What if we open the door for one developer? Well, first of all, I wouldn't deem Mr. Fisher as a developer. I'd deem him as a Hooper citizen that bought some property. He's a landowner. Just like everyone else in this room is a landowner. Landowners have rights, and they should have rights. And if they follow the ordinances and laws given to them by their community and by the state, they should have the rights to do what they deem necessary to do with their property. We shouldn't infringe upon those rights. If we, as a community, change our ordinance and we change that process and that no longer is a half-acre overlay, then they don't have the right. Currently, Mr. Fisher has the right, just like everyone else before him since 2014 has had the right. So my question to the council is, and I'm sure there's going to be comment, but is if someone can tell me what is eminent versus infrastructure, fire, water, sewer, or any of those other things, I'm on board to say not a chance. But someone's got to show me a reason why not. Otherwise, I think legally it's a done deal.
I can argue a few of the points that you made. Number one, we have not stopped growth. If you think we've stopped growth, drive over by my house. We made the resolution. And if I'm incorrect, you supported the resolution.
Yes.
And at that time, we went over House Bill this, how we went over the legalities of it. So the general plan update is now in process. I guess since I'm the aged individual on here. That's not that long to wait until we, the general plan, the review is complete. Our general plan even says we can do this in a static state. This doesn't mean the rest of Hooper is static. The only thing that was static was the rezones. Many subdivisions are ongoing. So to say we've stopped growth, that's incorrect. There's just a pause in new rezones. It had the overwhelming support of the citizens of Hooper. It had the overwhelming support of the city council and the planning commission. And we heard all those concerns before it was adopted. And I believe that's why we adopted it, so that we would have time to think about and consider what's going to happen in the future. We made a commitment, and I think we need to adhere to that.
One more thing I wanted to add. Statistically, I've heard tonight, and I know we're getting surveys back, and I appreciate the surveys. A couple of months back, maybe even 6 months ago, I asked Shauna and Tracy for some data in regards to Hooper City. And so I'm not sure how they got it, but they waved the wand and they came up with some pretty good data for me. At least I think it is. At the time they ran this report for me, there was approximately 2,600 homes in Hooper. 2,600. Out of those 2,600, you may be curious how many of those are on 1 acre plus. Because based on the statistical data that we hear, it's got to be 75% of them. Or more, right? Because we don't hear from everyone. Currently, based on that report that was given to me, there's 960 homes on 1 acre plus out of the 2,600. Approximately 1,700 homes, 16 whatever, some change, are on less than 1 acre. It's 40,000 square feet less, 40,000 square feet more. So the builder's acre, right? So when we're saying that the town of Hooper doesn't want, I get it. And I know, once again, you know what? They're probably not, but one of you want to go out and have a Coke with me after the meeting, and that's okay. Because I represent you all, and I represent the other 8,500 people plus in our community. I would like order.
Continue.
What's that?
I say, okay, continue. So
So that's just a statistic that I think we need to understand, is that our citizens aren't all living on 1 acre plus. And so when I hear they want a bigger lot, I concur. If I lived on a smaller lot, maybe I want a bigger lot. I don't know what that means. And I know we're trying to get that data. And I think that, we're trying to clean that out. No one has ever said in the history of time that I know of, I want neighbors in my backyard. I've never heard one person come to our meeting and say, I'm excited about that new development, because it's an emotional decision. But to me, our groups shouldn't be emotional, although I'm emotional, I'm sorry, because I'm the pot on the yellow black. We should base our decisions based off factual items, and that's whether or not the city can handle what's going on, and whether or not we're following our ordinances and the state.
So as we opened this general plan, that's one of the reasons that should be done every 5 years and updated, which it hadn't been. So I understand what you're saying, but I think what the city as a whole, I believe what we're looking at is we're trying to collect that information so we know where we are. It's easy to say there's plenty of water until the well goes dry. We don't want to be in a position where, if we'd have only done that a year ago, 2 years ago. And I would hope that we could be forward thinking enough that we are looking out for 20 years. I don't think 20 years ago there was ever a thought that there would be the population explosion along the Wasatch Front had today. In fact, I would go back just as recent as 2008. I thought things were kind of going away. I mean, we'd kind of went through a crisis, but never would I have ever guessed that there was going to be this much pressure. And as we've talked about this right from the beginning, it felt like it was timely to look at our general plan to make sure that all our infrastructure is on course to sustain. And I use that word more all the time because it makes a lot of sense to me, the sustainability of something. I mean, is it going to be as good today, or it'll be as good in 20 years down the road as it is today? If things are sustainable, in fact, sometimes they even get better. But the only way we can ever know that, if we just take the time to look at it, look at where we are, where our resources are. I mean, water, this year, water ought to be a resource that we look at and say, maybe we really don't have an endless supply of, had the worst drought we've had record. Great Salt Lake's at an all-time low as far as its elevation and water. Who would have ever thought that at one time we were trying to pump water out of the Great Salt Lake so it wouldn't flood areas in Hooper? So things change. I think that's where the real responsibility comes on us as a council and planning commission. See if we can be forward thinking enough to be ahead of the game all the time, not trying to catch up. We'll never catch. If we get too far behind, we'll never catch up. Sometimes I think that's easy, an easy thing to let have happen. Get behind, and we never get to where we can. Our vision's not even as clear. I don't think we make as good of decisions when we're behind if we're ahead. I think that was the whole purpose of this resolution in the first place. I think it was made clear, visiting with our legal counsel, making sure that everything was in place so that this information would be out there, so that when a developer came into the city, they knew before they ever came in to apply for a rezone that have the resolution wasn't just something that was taken haphazardly. I mean, it was a well thought out. Try to keep residents of Hooper keeping Hooper the very best place they can live. Taking care of our residents of. That means the ones that are going to live here in the future too. Sometimes we think just the ones that live here now, but I think we have a responsibility to take care of those that will eventually live here. So,
Here, could I just clarify something about our transportation master planning that I probably should have explained a little better? I just wanted the council to know we are working with the Wasatch Front Regional Council team is doing the general plan so we can get 5, 10, 15, 20-year projections. And so we don't have to wait for the, to see, well, 20 years is going to be this. We will know kind of how to project our roadway infrastructure, these 5-year increments. So I just wanted you to know, like, we're not going to say, well, 25 years from now it's going to look like. We're going to know, but hopefully know what 5, 10, and 15 years look like, so you can have that help you make some decisions as well. But wanted to clarify that. So.
Reed, Councilor Reed. I have a question. Could you tell me the difference between a moratorium and just not approving anything? I have one more question. With the 8 acres that we have on the board, if you develop it right now, you would not have to rezone it. It could, technically, we are allowing buildings, so we're allowing building permits, we're allowing things to go forward based on what you said. So with 8 acres, not a good builder, but I'm assuming that if you wanted to cut a road into that 8 acres, you'd probably lose 2 acres, you'd probably put 6 houses, maybe 5 houses on an 8-acre parcel.
Typically on the larger pieces, they get about 85%
So,
of the, the lots.
so.
But
when I look
this
at
this is smaller and it'd be harder to fit very much.
I look at it, I think, okay, we cut a road, we built 6 houses, 5 houses. Gotta cut a road, we're gonna put curb and gutter, we're gonna put 5 houses. If it's a half-acre lot, we're gonna shrink that frontage by 150 to 100 foot. Everyone's putting up their vinyl fence, no one sees what's in the yard anyway. There's no open space, whether it's a half acre or an acre, and we're adding 10 houses. I just don't see the draw on the infrastructure demand, 5 houses to 10 houses that's stopping us from moving forward.
So my 2 cents. I've read this resolution backwards and forwards over and over again for the last 2 weeks. And tried to come to an understanding what applies, what doesn't apply. You know, what was our purpose with this resolution? I agree with Chris, there is a law that we have to follow, state law. We did pass a resolution as a planning commission and as a city council. We all 18 paragraphs in this resolution. Some I agree with, some I don't necessarily agree with, but the ones I keep coming back to are one of them that Ryan Fisher mentioned is that the council and the commission desire to work towards completion of the amendments to the general plan in a timely manner. So what is defined as a timely manner? The last time we did a general plan, 2014, I was on the planning commission. And the timely manner back then was a year. You know, so yes, we have outside help this time. Wasatch Front Regional Council, and now we're talking 2 years to complete a general plan. Is that because we have outside help that they're recommending it take that long now? Or is it just because we're just dragging it out? You know what I mean?
I'm not sure where that 2 years came from.
2 years
They
either.
just mentioned that. Somebody on the planning commission just mentioned that.
That's before, you said next August, July, August.
No. What we said is probably summer of 2022.
June 22 is what
June.
I have. Well, if that's not my math, it's not 2 years, but
A year and 10 months. 2 years. Anyway,
But it could be faster than that. I mean, information might come in faster than we.
what information are we getting and how fast is that coming in? I mean, as a city councilman, I haven't heard anything with the general plan, right? All I keep hearing about in these meetings is land use, land use, land use. We're gonna go to 1 acre, 1 acre, 1 acre. That's all I keep hearing about in our progress of the general plan. There's so many other facets of the general plan. It's just not even funny. And all I keep hearing about is land use.
well,
Well, that's great, but
Well,
there's a
just
survey is available online and that covered a lot of things. I say the minority of that report was on land use. It was on many, many other things. And just know, the last time we did the general plan, I was also involved. We weren't involved in a world pandemic either. And obviously that has slowed things down because we have not been able to have in-person meetings. So I think you have to consider all of the circumstances, not just
so
time.
where do you feel we're at with the general plan? What's our progress at, right?
I would have to work with the commission on that, but.
Yeah, I would,
But it did help. I was gonna say, Cindy, it did help a lot. When we went over that general plan before, we had open houses here, people coming in all the time. That was much easier that was a much easier way to collect information and to talk to than we've had this last year. It has been more difficult. That has nothing to do with how efficient we tried to be as a city. That was just our circumstances. But no, I think we're moving, I mean, based on what the planning commission's sharing, I think we're moving forward with, these surveys is one thing. Tracy mentioned, we've got a road study. So I think there's the data's coming in.
That's great.
Want to rush just because we might miss a deadline on it. I don't think you want to rush through some of the studies and different things just because.
So I
We-
mentioned that just because we can't hide behind the resolution. And timely manner is mentioned in that resolution. So I would hope we would be forthcoming now that the pandemic's lessening, thank goodness, that we can be more up to speed on getting the bill. That's my only thought on that.
I think with the surveys coming in that helps.
I agree. They've gathered the information now. I think
I
the
think
plan will be
let's
formulated.
start going a little faster, yeah.
And it is online. Anybody in this room can look at the results of the general plan to this point, as far as the surveys go.
Two more thoughts from the resolution. I mean, obviously water is mentioned in our resolution, both culinary and secondary water. I sure hope, I know the state legislature passed a bill this year that mandated all the water companies in Utah to go to meter and actually allowed low interest loans and financing, whatever that happens. No hooper irrigation's on the low end of the total pool, some of the big guys, but I would sure hope we can get as quick as possible with that bill.
Well, it's in place now. Any subdivisions have.
Because, I don't know, I just see a lot of waste, we all do. And it's frustrating to be in a drought. People use the water. They're responsible. And so, thank goodness that's around the corner. I know with the drought and everything, that water is a concern, especially drinking water. As mentioned earlier, one of the aquifers that we trough on, knows how good our aquifers are right now and where that water's coming from. So yes, that's a concern, and that's why it's in our resolution. And finally, from the resolution, it says, whereas if rezones are allowed to continue, requests for future rezoning may increase in an attempt to avoid further requirements imposed by the revised general plan. So I guess my biggest fear with this resolution and approving or disapproving rezones now is that the precedents we set. If we approve one, does that mean we have to approve the next 20 that come tomorrow or the next year? Who knows when? If we disapprove one, does that mean that we have to disapprove them all? Down the last paragraph, it says that rezones should be limited during the time it is updating the general plan. We didn't say, Reed mentioned 2 or 3 homes versus 60 acres or whatever, somewhere in between. We didn't really define that. We just said limited. There's no hard definition of what we can and can't do. It's basically up to the commission and council based on this resolution. I do agree with that paragraph that says if rezones are allowed to continue, requests for future rezoning may increase in an attempt to avoid what the new general plan is going to impose. That makes sense to me, right? So, that's my 2 cents on the resolution. I like the resolution. I don't want to hide behind the resolution forever and ever. That's not the intent. No, I was looking a year, 18 months. Move along. we did as a council vote for the resolution. I think to go totally against the resolution would not be smart. And that's my 2 cents.
Okay, so I was never in favor of the resolution. So not only do I not live on an acre lot or a half acre lot or a third acre lot, I actually live on a quarter acre lot that somehow some city council way before my time approved in the east side of Hooper. So I don't know. So I didn't like the way the resolution came down. I didn't like the way the moratorium originally came down. Didn't like the feeling of the whole deal. Last time, because I was on the city council when they opened the general plan, we did not have a resolution. We worked through it. I don't think we're any, I trust in our council. I trust in Tracy and what, the expertise they have. They have expertise I don't have about, where we can put lots in or whatever. So in fairness to all the people I represent, which is District 4 and 5, probably 90% of those are on half acre or less. And I mean, some of us are on quite a bit less because the city council, the city thought it deemed it okay to do. I had no idea. I didn't develop that land. I just bought one of the lots. I didn't have any idea that this was ever coming down. And I didn't ever have any idea I was going to be on the city council when this came down and how ugly it has got. But I think the numbers are there. I don't know. I did not vote for the resolution. You see the vote on there. There was one person that didn't, and it was me. Okay, so that being said, I got outvoted. I'm good at that. I think it makes us a stronger society and a stronger group if we can actually have opposing views on things and we can get together. I do agree with whoever on the planning commission said we are not on the same page. We are definitely not on the same page, and the city council is not on the same page. I don't know if this group's ever going to be on that same page, but the fact of the matter is I got outvoted on the resolution, which is not binding, by the way, and everything comes to the city council. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Yours worth 20.
I was not on council at the time that the resolution was voted on. I came in afterwards. And I actually, was not able to attend that meeting in general because I work nights. But I have read through it and I've thought it through. And I don't think it's not permanent. We're not saying there will be no growth ever in Hooper because that's just unrealistic. I think, however, as we're watching this commission, the planning commission, come together and work on some ways of bettering our city, helping our city, understanding the people, the community of that's in this area, what we want, I think we have to be cautious before we make a decision, as we listen to what they've got going, as we listen to what the citizens are concerned about and what they would want us to do. Now, that doesn't mean we always do what they want us to do because there might be different things happening. But as we look at things and as it was voted upon, I think you just stay within that until that so-called timely manner comes to an end. And then things are more set for the developers or people dividing their land or whatever it be.
Can I just share one more tidbit?
Sure.
So I sat through every meeting, every open house of the land when we did this back in 2014, every single one. I made a note and at the time is like you said, it was open, come in, share your thoughts. And we probably had 20 requests for rezone. Just because people knew that there was something happening. And a lot of that was out west. A lot of it. In fact, I highlighted my map in black for every property that came in, and it was black all over the place. And so in spite of that, though, I mean, not everybody got their way. And that's just the nature of it is. So the final decision of the planning commission at the time said, here's the area that can be served by the vacuum sewer system. I explained at the time the capacity there, that was the limits. And a lot of people out west got disappointed. You're not going to be on the land use map for smaller lots and that. So I just wanted you to know, I mean, when you talk about, you know, the rush that could happen, I mean, it did happen, but a decision was made. This is where it's going to be. And I think you have the strength of this group and the ability with the help of the planning commission and the group to make hard decisions again. And some people will be disappointed because that's a fact to happen years ago.
One thing I want to mention, just to finish my last comment, the time for citizens input as a community is during this general plan process. We create a land use map that we use for the next 5 years, for example, but the process to change that is now, when the general plan is open. You know, when the general plan is closed and we have a land use map, like we have the last 6-7 years, to allow things to happen, the time for public input is over because we're governed by that general land use map. And so if there ever was a time to get your neighbors and friends out to voice their opinion on what you want Hooper to look like, it's now during the general plan. Because we change things from public input on the general plan now, not when it's closed a year from now and for the next 5 years. We're bound to that, right? So please come in, you know, do the survey, whatever. Send
Right.
emails, I don't know.
We have the survey, plus there's those maps that are set up back there that you can come in and look at and write some comments. I mean,
That was our, not complaint, but our concern last time was the lack of public input last time. We had very little, and we made a decision based on the input that we got to change the land use map, which we thought was a good decision back then. So
And we do like seeing people. We like people here versus empty chairs. So we appreciate you giving your time and your concern to the same things that we are concerned about.
well, is there any other discussion?
I have a quick question for Councilman Norfolk and Councilman. I think you guys brought up some good points. I did vote for the resolution. I did vote for the moratorium prior to that. Based on, my concern, and Councilman Hill brought this up, is that, is what's timely. State code says 180 days, 6 months on both their different definitions. We're at 7. I don't know if we'll end up in 12, if we'll end at 18, if we'll end at 24. I just think as a city, we got to be careful. So that's my, got to be careful. It's not about setting precedents. Somebody might come in with 50 homes and maybe it's a draw on the infrastructure. I don't think the 8 acres is.
Well, is there any other discussion on going from R1 to R2? Been applied for by Ryan.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the rezone from R1 to R2. Approximately 4965 south, 6300 west for 8.39 acres.
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed? No.
3 opposed, advise. Not
So do we make another motion to, that was it? Okay. So just a little bit of information I received during that from the chairman of the planning commission. The WFRC is estimating the zoning overlay maps to be available for citizens' comments during Tomato Days, which is a great time because you're all going to come this year. So make sure your opinion's noted.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have final approval, Christensen Fairway subdivision. Tracy, will time over to you.
Hang on, Mayor, I'm out of order. Okay, here we go. Now I'm in order. Okay, so this is a Christensen Fairway subdivision located just up the street here, 5,500 south, about, or west, about 3,900 south. This is a one lot subdivision on 2.2 acres. And they're here for final plat approval. I'm sorry that date is from the planning commission date. I didn't get that updated. So, but anyway, that's yeah, just one lot. The whole property in this area was rezoned several years ago. And even though this is a big lot, the reason it benefits from the R2 zone is because of the frontage out on 5,500 West. R2 only requires 100 feet, and that represents acceptable frontage out there, but it is a big lot. And so as a single lot subdivision, they're able to be in one meeting with the planning commission and one meeting with the city council. So they're here for final plat approval. This is what the plat looks like, very simple. Again, just frontage on 5,500 West where they can access the property and a big lot to build one single home on. Okay. So when this came before the planning commission for review, all the items in our city staff's memos had been completed. That included a final plat and improvement drawings had been updated. In the memo that the planning commission had, there were two remaining items that were completed before, before the meeting. I just didn't get a chance to update the memo. One of them in reference to an easement that was needed, and another in reference to some additional right-of-way that we needed on 5,500 West to be dedicated as part of this. And they were updated directly following the last staff memo. So I wanted the planning commission at the time to be sure they knew that we had seen and approved all the items that we had in the memo in our reviews. Final will serve letters had been provided by Taylor West Weber Water Improvement District, Hooper Irrigation. Final approval had been provided by the Weber Fire Marshal. And we had the other required letters from Dominion Energy and Rocky Mountain Power to say that all of these entities that are outside of our city have said that they approved this one lot subdivision. So that was the report that went to the planning commission. And I believe that they, and I wasn't there, but I believe they unanimously recommended a final plat approval to the council for this one lot.
Tracy,
Yes.
Tracy, can you talk to us about flag lots? This may appear to be a flag lot, but tell us why that's not a flag.
Because it has the minimum frontage on a public street, 100 feet.
That's where the house has to face.
Not necessarily,
Wouldn't necessarily have to face.
but that, I mean, that's
5500
where
west.
they're gonna get access to their house.
So
Yeah.
the first would be like a driveway that's just cut in to build a flag, right? Not
Yeah.
have a lot to build wherever you want.
Correct.
Have to be 150.
If it was in the R1, it'd have to be 150 feet wide out there. And this really, when the rezone was looked at 5 years ago, it wasn't intended to look like this at all. We anticipated a 7 or 8 lot subdivision. Now we've got this one. And next time you'll hear about the one right below it, another one lot subdivision. So just 2 lots on this large piece. So.
So do we have someone here to represent the Christensen Fairway subdivision? State your name and address and. Take it, she's probably a Christian. Okay. Uh-huh. Have any questions? Austin? Thank you. Bring it back to the council. Is there any other discussion here?
I'll make a motion. We approve, final approval for the Christensen Fairway subdivision, 3870 South, 5500 West.
Motion? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next on the agenda, we have final approval for the Whittison subdivision of lots.
Okay, so here's again, I've highlighted the area that covers the H&L Whittison subdivision. They're here for final plat approval, went to the planning commission back in April. I've been through preliminary and now asking for the council to give final plat approval. This is 24 lots on 16 acres. This also is in the R2 zone. And you'll notice where it sits, about 4,700 south and about 6,000 west. I look back at my record on my computer. I actually started this back in January of 2020. So it's been around a while. They got preliminary plat approval sometime in 2020 and then kind of went away for a while. And somebody made a comment in the planning commission about some of the obstacles and things. And as a staff, we make sure that all those things are handled. And so sometimes it takes a little while to get through it, but they have now handled that. So here's the plat. It's a connection to the road 4700 south in the Low subdivision, and then a couple of stub streets into the property to the south that are required by our ordinance to provide access for future development. And so there are 24 lots. Many of them, around the 24,000 square foot. There are a few that are in the 30s. And one big one in the corner that's 47,000 square feet. In order to make everything fit, there usually ends up being kind of a variety, but still a minimum frontage of 100 feet in the R2 zone. So when this came before the planning commission back in April, again, we had stated that all the items in the city staff's review memos had been completed, including the final plat and the improvement drawings updated to staff satisfaction. And then again, all the final approval letters from the outside entities had been received. And until we have those things, it's not done. And so we got all of that. And And it went to the planning commission, and I believe they recommended final plat approval to the city council. Don't know if there was other discussion. I wasn't there, but typically, when it gets this far, there's not a lot that they say, as long as the staff has given the checklist approval. So any questions for me about the H&L Whittison subdivision?
Thank you, Tracy. We have someone here to represent vision.
Kenny Palmer. Address is 3062 West, 4375 South. Got a subdivision here that all the qualifications was within the law, zoning.
Council have any questions for Palmer?
I was at that meeting, and I think that Commissioner Simpson gave them commendation for having their ducks in a row, so.
Was unanimous.
What took so long? You said it started in 2020. What
Oh,
was?
don't get me started on that.
Okay.
It's
Appreciate
a
it.
long meeting. We don't need to make it longer.
Good enough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Is there any other discussion among council members? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant final approval to the Whittison subdivision at 66,000 West, 4,700 South.
Motion. Second,
I'll second it.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next on the agenda, we have adopt the tentative budget report that council had a chance to go over about a week ago. And once we adopt the report, then there'll be a public hearing for all the residents of Hooper and review that. So as I understand it, this takes a motion to tentatively adopt budget. Then we actually put the finals in place.
You said you did make changes based on our recommendations. Just in a nutshell, what were some of those? I know we had a discussion about budget. Plan.
I actually came in and talked to Teresa a little bit about that because it was, yeah, I think, and she could probably clarify it better than I could because I think we were like, counting a salary as coming from that budget, but yet the salary was covered by by the.
So we increased the budget. We're now contracts to pay out plus.
So yeah, so the planning commission budget, one of the biggest differences we saw is when we budgeted last year, we budgeted based on having one full-time employee who was also our city inspector and was doing the planning commission. He ended up leaving us shortly after that budget was finalized. And so we ended up going with contractors to do our city inspection. And so that was, it showed a huge difference from what we had actually budgeted this year for what we actually expended this year. The biggest thing about that budget is it is fully covered by building. The reason we charge so that we can pay those inspection fees and then also cover any office work that has to happen to make sure the planning. It's our fair and safe. So right now, even looking at what we have budgeted for this year in the tentative budget, the revenue from building permits fully covers that.
But it is a full-time, technically it'd be a full-time employee if we
So
had it in-house.
with
plus
it, that
a
is
3/4
including,
time.
yeah, so that would be a 3/4 time office employee, and that person would actually help with subdivisions and zoning too. Which when I calculated the revenue, I didn't even factor in any of the zoning and subdivision that we do get in. This was based fully on building permits.
But we are increasing the overall expense of that position.
We
by
are,
an extra
we are.
$65,000.
But in all truth, the city has been struggling for years trying to do the office work that has to go on. Our city recorder took a big beating by trying to cover that and what she is required to. We need that help. And as the city grows, that help.
Yeah. Yep, agree.
Okay.
Thanks. Very good.
You guys make me terrified and nervous up here, so.
We are scary.
I would say we have to talk about that more, but
The duties of that position is.
Yeah.
tonight is probably not the night, so.
All of you have copies of that, right? That you can review.
I would like to see it posted soon, so we probably ought to, if anybody has any input, do it now, because obviously they need the help.
Your what?
Put it on the agenda for next time.
Okay. That's, do we want to wait that long? I mean, if you just want to have some input and we can review with all of you during the time,
I don't think we'll resolve it tonight.
but not.
Next meeting. Okay. And make a final list. Yep,
Listening
yep,
to-
yep.
Councilwoman Cox, I was listening to you from October, and you were like, everyone show up, be ready and prepared, and we'll knock this out. And I'm like, man, we still have this.
Well, what would really help is if you'll just review what you currently have. We've written up a position description. All of you should have it. So if you'll look at that and then just, I mean, I'd like to think that you could just make some adjustments on it rather than just rewrite the whole thing. If we could have those in before the meeting, that would help us on that.
So as part of this motion on number 5, do we need to set a date for the public hearing? Thank you.
Third.
So I'll make a motion that we adopt the tentative budget report for 2021, 2022, and set the public hearing date as June 3rd, 2021, to amend the 2021 budget and approve 21-22 budget certified tax.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. Call that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That was a lot of numbers.
Okay, item number 6, presentation, from Brad Buse and Lewis Meyer. They was unable to get some of the and tonight, so we just have a motion to table that.
Make a motion to table that agenda item to our next agenda. They did say that.
Have a motion to table that.
Second.
You have a second. All those in favor? Okay.
Next meeting, right?
Right, table to the next meeting. Okay, last item on the agenda is a discussion on the Hooper North Park upgrades. And so, again, this is Councilman Paulson, you and Councilman Hill discussed this.
After last meeting, as Councilman Hill and I were walking out, one of the things that we had discussed is, as a council last fall, I think we took a walk. And we were trying to come up with that strategic plan of what that park would look like. We just wanted to make sure this is a group that as we bring these grants in and start to do this, build out that.
Trying to think how we, can we have a work, like, we had a work meeting.
Right, so what did we do?
Well,
The public
we've had,
forum?
we've had work meetings.
We've had so many work meetings with the grant committee. I thought it was cut and dried. All the information Sherry presented to us, and I thought it was set.
In fact, Sherry, maybe we could just have you come up, Sherry Bingham, review this with us and,
So we had ramp grant committee meetings that were held in like September and October. The city council voted on this in December. The grants were actually submitted on on January 11th. And all of that was already in the ramp grants when we submitted it. So I'm not exactly sure what the,
So I guess our discussion was, so the playground setup, right? So,
Mhm.
you did a good job, I'm not shocked at it, but I can't get over that, sorry. So, you know, she had brought up that we, what if we want to put a disability swing, right? Those are things that we haven't discussed.
well, yes, we did because I sent you an email and I received.
No,
you-
no,
okay.
no, that came back after the meeting. What I'm saying is, last meeting when we talked about it, we as a council hadn't discussed that. We discussed the swing set, the play set last time. We didn't discuss what the pickleball court looks like. We didn't discuss what amenities are going with the pickleball court. We didn't discuss what the basketball court looks like or what type of hoops we're putting. We didn't discuss, last meeting, we got presented with some developers
Last meeting,
on the bids.
we approved the budget to pay for all of these.
So before
And at
the,
that time, we said, hey, we'll have another meeting afterwards and discuss the details of this. We want to have that.
okay, so before the ramp grants were ever approved, we did discuss what they were going to look like. And if you remember, I told you to go look out at like Smith and Edwards, that we were designing it similar to that. And Chris, if you remember, you were on that committee. I can't remember if you came to any meetings or not though, but you were. And so I told you to go look at that. And there were the 4 pickleball courts. There were the 2 basketball courts with the 6 hoops with a 1 acre parking lot. But all of that was voted on by city council back in December, so I could get the ramp grants written and submitted in January. So,
My discussion, when we walked out there before, we talked about that hill out on the side there is where the parking lot would go. And then we changed, we said, what if the parking lot was in between the trees?
I think
No.
Sherry has all of this
yeah,
on paper that you can review and just look at that because
yeah, it never was a
Gone
question
through
and it
this.
never has changed.
it has
In fact, I have a big packet because they're,
I never saw the details.
They helped write letters for the grant, for the grant proposal.
So in our
You're
last
bad.
meeting, as we approved the money to get approval, we said, hey, we're gonna meet and talk about this.
Or we said,
talk about
that we could talk about it via email back.
this 2 weeks ago, right?
You know, I guess I was under the impression that the ramp grant committee was going to do that and take care of that. And when you okayed it last month, that's what you were okaying?
Okay, in the budget, the money.
I misunderstood. Going back and I full minutes, so when we talked about the pickleball courts, we talked about applying to get that money aside for up to 8. And we thought we.
No,
what would happen-
no,
Got it.
no, nope, nope.
So it was.
We have to contribute to those ramp grants. Our portion, that's part of our portion.
Dollars aside for the pickleball courts, it was $30,000 a court, which would have been $240,000. We changed that, and that's fine when we submitted for the ramp grant. I'm not saying we did anything wrong, but the discussion was open. Remember, we said if we don't get the ramp grants, we would go back to use the money that we set aside to cover the pickleball courts. So how that's all been allocated or decided didn't come through this group at the end once we got the grants. Because costs are up, you have to lose right now. I think, no, that, you're correct. The grants are correct. I'm not arguing the grant fact. You did a great job on the grants. Yes.
Okay, I think the problem is here, let's just settle this really quickly. I think a couple of the council members feel like, you did a fantastic job, by the way, Sherry. I mean, we really appreciate everything you've done. But they were thinking that we voted on the approval of the money, but we didn't get, the council did not get a say on the rest. So that's where I think the rubber meets the road, really simply. And I think if that happened in the future, that would go over a lot better.
Said it over. I don't know, 30% on that. So that's great. But it's that one swing up the other swing.
Cleared up the details. Well, where are they going? What are they gonna look like? What's the lights gonna look like? What's the fence gonna look like? What's all these details of this?
There's the exit point out of the court.
Yeah. Where's the parking in conjunction, though? Yeah. So where are we staking it out at? Where's the location?
I keep, we were here.
Part of the park is it going in? Did you decide that on the committee?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Yep. You could have forgot.
We're gonna do that RV. I thought we were gonna do the RV junction.
Right, that's right. I hope so too. I hope so too. Right, that's something, yeah.
But that, going back to that, so we didn't say in the future, we said we were gonna do that project, right? Okay, that's. Yeah, right. So we probably should look at the budget for that.
I did too.
So tell us again on the parking lot. Is it going to be an extension of our parking lot or a whole separate parking lot?
Wait, Tracy, you caught that, Tracy.
Get your hammer and stakes with you tonight, Tracy. I'll help you measure that out. So don't take away from you. You do an amazing job with the grants. I know you're frustrated. I don't think that was our intention to frustrate you. Apparently we did.
Are there any other questions for Sherry? Okay, so where are we in all of this? Do I sign or do you want to?
No, we approved the sign and didn't. Wasn't even a big question. We were just, but
Right.
so I know this is silly, but like Councilman Northup just jokingly, I think said, what color are they? And I mean, I guess.
I know.
And I guess that's like some of the things that you're like, so what is it? Are we going green? We going red? We going?
Okay, I think we're good here, aren't we? Go to Plain City. You don't even have to get out of the car. You don't even have to get out on Main Street in Plain City. you don't even have to get out of your car, get a really good look at them. So,
It's probably far west. I don't think it's Plain City. Oh, it is Plain City?
right, down, they're easy.
Yeah.
We'll take a field trip. I'll take you on a field trip. We'll take you on a field trip. Okay, are there any other items on that? If not, we would entertain, citizens comment. Any other comments?
Whoa.
Oh,
They raise up.
All right, my name is Tracy Woodward. I live at 23. Oh my goodness, I don't know where I live now. 4926 West, 5350 South. Jerry just nailed it on the head. I feel like for the last year, I've been kicking a dead horse and we're no closer. Where my property line is, behind my property line is the Christiansons. Beth Widdowson used to live there and it's the Christiansons. There's a ditch. The farmer came, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, dug the ditch and made it wider over mine and Howard Klein. Took it out. Now I am losing my property. I'm losing my landscaping and the fence about to go. I've had Upper City come. I've had Secondary Water come. I've had Wilson Water come. It's not theirs. I've asked the Christiansons. It's not theirs. I called up Weber County, told them where I lived. It's not theirs. Okay, I've talked to everybody. The only person I haven't talked to is the governor of Utah and the president of the United States. We keep finding out, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I am losing property. Brad bought my property line and you nearly lost your foot, right?
Fell in, yeah.
Because where the fence is gap. And the water, the soil is eroding. Yesterday, there was 2 feet of water in the ditch. The trees that the farmer dug out are leaning against and pushing against my fence. If any of you guys lived where I live, you would get it done. It would be done in a heartbeat because it is a disgrace. It is a junkyard back there with all the trees and the weeds and everything else. The ditch was there before I was. So I'm not saying get rid of the ditch because it was there before I was. What I'm saying is something has got to be done or we're going to lose the fence. If the fence goes, it's going to cost the city same as what it would cost for a pickleball court, 250,000. Okay, so I need to know, are we getting any closer to getting sort of, because we were so close to putting dirt down and then all of a sudden, oh, it's the Weber County Commission. No, it's not theirs because I've spoke to them and it don't belong to them. And I'm passionate about this because it's my yard.
They dug the ditch.
Okay?
Weber County dug the ditch.
Okay.
And this, just so you know, I think this is a really good case in point. This is why we have developers pipe ditches today. I mean, they don't want to do that. If a ditch is on their property or adjacent to, we require them to pipe it so that we don't have this problem that you're having. The ditch is more than just, it's not irrigation water. That ditch is picking up groundwater.
Nope. Nope.
No,
Nope.
all the time.
No, it's not. Nope.
Huh?
Nope.
There's tailwater, but no,
No, it's not. It is coming down from.
I'm really familiar with where you're talking about. See, the problem here in Hooper, if you call it a problem, years and years ago, they have dug a lot of deep drain ditches to take care of the groundwater so they could farm it. If they didn't have all these deep ditches in there, they could have never farmed the ground. The water would have come up, created alkali type soils. And you look all up to the southeast of you where there's no drain ditches, that's the type of dirt there would be everywhere. But that's not the type of dirt by you because they put in a deep ditch. They're pulling out groundwater all the time. Now it does pick up tailwater. However, we have a member of the Wilson Irrigation Company who works for them today that said they're now rerouting this tailwater. They don't dump tailwater into that ditch anymore. It now goes down 4,700.
Brought a picture. And I sent you
Yeah,
a
I
picture
know.
yesterday. We had last summer, and this is not lying, we had
So-
12 inches of of fish.
So that's the question. Who all is going to help you? Because you do need the help. No one wants to see your chain link fence go over. I mean, we've been along there.
Well, the thing is, I know Tracy's got the stop sign up, so I'll talk for Tracy. Will the city,
I'm sorry. I'm
Oh, did
taking
you
the
put
3
this-
minutes for all the-
oh, exactly. So they're asking, will the city redig that ditch to the inside a little bit, that section, that 200 feet to the inside there? Kelly Christensen's already okayed that we get on his land. I've already talked to him. Would the city bring down their backhoe and dig that ditch to the inside and push that dirt again?
Could we do that?
Would you do that? That's what Tracy's asking.
The yes or no question. This Tracy.
You do need help with that.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's been
mean,
over a year.
I don't want to, okay, we'll get you taken care of.
So that's a
We'll try
yes.
to, that's a yes. We hope to get the Weber County involved. I don't think Wilson Irrigation, I think they've rerouted that water to where it shouldn't go down there anymore. However, there are those people who, when they're done irrigating, they've left their water run a little too long and they just go and shut their head gate. They don't worry about where the water goes after.
Kelly Christensen told me that water is being used by Stan. He uses that on that property. He told me that personally. I went. and talked to him.
That's who irrigates it. That's
Yeah,
who
I know.
rents
So
the
he's
ground.
using that water. You're saying it's tail water, which actually isn't true. They're using he's using that water.
Oh, okay, so you know what I mean by tailwater?
Yeah. But I'm just saying.
That's
when that ditch
irrigation.
is Full of water. When that ditch is full of water, it's not groundwater. That ditch is full of water.
No,
They
you're
talked together and
right.
said that Stan uses that water.
But-
So we can't block that water off.
No, you just can't go fill in the ditch.
No, exactly.
We're not
but
saying that. We're saying.
Sometimes, okay, there you go. Let's do
I've
that.
been working a year with the mayor, and I know you're busy, but you know what? A year,
We'll get it
I'm
figured.
kicking a dead horse and it's not moving.
We'll get it,
Okay, all right. Well, thank you,
we'll
Tracy.
keep our eye on it and get it fixed.
All right, I'll be at the next council meeting.
Any other citizens' comments?
Follow something like. that. I just wanted to say thank you, right, for listening. And straight in line in alignment with our 2 zones, so thank you for that. The only other thing that I wanted to mention was really hard. I'm my husband, but it's really hard for us to look at the agenda and have citizen comment first. Because sometimes we don't understand what you all have read for a week or two. You have to stand up and go, this is on the agenda, but I don't really know what it means. So I would just ask that are having the agenda item, city council, somebody walking through, this is what this, and then open it up to citizen comment, because I would have said way more than I did had I known what was going on.
So we actually changed that from the way the format was before.
Didn't used to have citizen comment before at all. We
We got
have it
complaints,
after.
got complaints that it wasn't first, so we put it first.
So what your thought is, if we went through and explained the agenda items, what they're about to begin with, then you may have some comments.
Right. Like when
Isn't
we,
that how the planning commission does it?
I think,
That way still?
yeah, I'm referring, when we had the one outside, and the whole citizen, we all went abrupt. Okay, I
Okay,
guess I'm done talking.
all right.
I'm Kelly Taylor. I live at 3620 South, 5500 West, Hooper. And I never heard about pickleball fields or pickleball courts till about 3 weeks ago. And that was from Brad Buse. And so everybody that plays pickleball, he plays pickleball with the commissioner here. So I look at, they asked who wants this for the area. Well, everybody's looking at soccer fields and pickleball things and basketball courts. What about the people that have horses? You can't ride down a road in Hooper now. They're widening our road because of all the houses going in. My granddaughter rode her horse through a subdivision where we used to ride because it was a dirt road, get to the park or where we wanted to go. And the horse took a dump in the road, and now it's social media that somebody's horse went in the road. People walk down our roads and their dogs crap on your lawn and they keep going and it doesn't get posted on social media. The road, because of all the subdivisions, they're doing 50 miles an hour down there and it's only a 30. I've had people that lives on Chris's road complain that they do the same thing on his road coming out of that subdivision. And just because they want to build an 8 subdivision house doesn't mean that that road's not going to get expanded like ours. We complained when they wanted to do ours and they just blew it through because it was zoned for that. And now we got to deal with the problems. They had the road closed for a week and the guys was blowing through there at 50 miles an hour, didn't care about the road closed signs, the construction workers or nothing. But there needs to be some stuff like, I think more people would use a dump station than the pickleball field. But I don't know because I just heard about the pickleball. But I think there needs to be more stuff out here for the community that has horses and stuff like that than pickleball fields and more soccer stuff. Thank you.
Sorry, I know it's late and we all want to get home. I just had a couple of, oh, Amanda Prince, 1693 West, 5300 South. Had a couple of suggestions that I think might help a little bit with some of the frustration that I think you guys get here and that we get at the Planning Commission. I would love to see something just like a simple flow chart of how things work. Like there's a rezone meeting, there's preliminary approval, final approval, so that people understand how the process works and when their comments hold the most weight. I think you guys experience it here. We do in the Planning Commission where we have people come, something's up for final approval and they're voicing their frustration about it at that time. And at that point, there's really nothing that we can do about it. I just think it would be good if we came up, I don't know if you guys are the ones that do that or if we in the Planning Commission or the city staff, just something like a simple flow chart that we can post maybe on the city page, maybe on the community pages for the Facebook groups, just so people are aware of how things work. I think that a lot of people don't really understand that process. And I think it would be helpful. The only other comment I had is, I've heard it mentioned a few times that people aren't aware of what's going on with the general plan revisions. I think it would be great if you guys could attend like the open houses or the focus groups or the advisory committee meetings. Those are all public. And I have seen a few of the city council members on there, but that's a great way to find out what the community is wanting. And I think that's something that you guys need to be aware of even more so than what we do on the Planning Commission. So thank you.
$4311 South, 5900 West. I just want to take 1 minute and let you, everyone know, everyone that's in this room, the survey that we just did is now closed. And there is an 18-page summary of all of the questions that were asked. And it shows the percentage. We had 515 responses. It shows the percentage of the majority of who answered which questions. It's very informative. If you want to be informed about what's going on with our general plan and what we're trying to do, please go to the planhooper.weebly.com and click on the tab for the, I think it's Get Involved, and then it'll show you where the surveys are. So these summaries are all there for both survey 1 and 2, plus many comments. We captured all of the comments that people wrote on the either online or on their paper surveys. All of those comments are captured. And then there's also the feedback from the focus groups and all of the comments that were captured there. So the Wasatch Front Regional Council has done a really good job in helping us. I feel like if our citizens would take a minute to go and read those, and if our city council was very well informed, then we can work together and things will move forward faster. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council and entertain a motion. Oh. Oh, okay. What were these letters?
Didn't we allow them to do this because of the pandemic rules? Wasn't this a temporary thing we were gonna do? Otherwise, they need to be here. How long are we gonna do this?
So did these pertain to things on the agenda or just a public comment?
I think, can you email them to the council? Make copies and email them to the council. Mayor, are you good at that? No. Right. Okay, let's do that.
All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second to adjourn all of them.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?